The West African Examination Council has set a date for the Gambia Basic Education Certificate. Egypt has reopened its airspace with a view to boost the country's economy. And South Africa's Black Lives Matter movement has renewed the call to end racism and inequality. This and more coming on The World Today. Hello, this is iAfrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin, and I am Amadou Kante. Many thanks for joining us, and now the news in detail. The West African Examination Council in Banjul has announced date for the Gambia Basic Education Certificate examination about a month after the resumption of classes. The office asserts that strategy will be in place to ensure the safety of students as well as question of quality. Details of that in this report by Aminata Job.
The West African Examination Council in Banjul has announced that the Gambia Basic Education Certificate examination, better known as GABESI, will commence on the 20th of July 2020. The examination body held a press conference to explore the mechanism in the administration of a quality exam during the period of emergency as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. Demba Suare, the head office of tests, explained the supervisory aspect with aim to prevent any form of exam malpractice.
This year, we introduced a new strategy for the first time at grade 9 level. That is, we are introducing monitors whose main responsibility is just to monitor, to monitor and see what is happening. Because the supervisor, especially for a bigger center like St. Teresa's, you see, and Latrikunda Upper Basic School, the supervisor is here, and you have another classroom at the far end. It will be difficult to monitor all these things, and that's why we are introducing monitors to observe. Their main function is to observe.
Kuranjai, the principal of Latrikunda Upper Basic School, pointed out that schools that are closer to the highway are always at risk of the COVID-19. She, however, ensured parents that all protocols as recommended by the Ministry of Education will continue to be observed to ensure the safety of students.
So we were able to clean the school, all the corners of the school, including the stores, the toilets, the market, and everything. So after the fumigation exercise, then we were able to set aside our timetable, knowing that we are coming to divide these 603 candidates we have into different classes, because previously we were putting 50 in a class. So it's like we have divided that class into two, using their index numbers to make everything easier.
Bakari Kanyi, the regional chairman for Schools Management Committee representing parents, said that they have played their part to ensure the reopening of schools and that it was time for more concerted efforts to reach out to the examination stage.
Janibi kata karamu dondul fanang alfal men be loring karamu to ngana forum sorle na information ki all the stakeholders like SMCs, regional care persons and school care persons ka fo ko karamu be yella men beta bu kononto wol be yelela ñu wati karing wotom be ñenta kafula ñom mangata ndul fana ñenta menkeno la je wala mu ka dulal fita ka classroom wol fita ka kampare dinu la ko kam.
The 2020 general examination for upper basic schools, according to the examination body, will concentrate mainly on what was covered during the academic year. Schools with more than 100 students will have to be divided into two groups with respective to social distancing measures. This is Aminata Job reporting for iAfrica.
Authorities in the education sector discuss on plans on how to hold this year's examinations. Next, President Adama Barrow has paid condolences on the passing of the former president of the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, Alhaji Mohamed Drame. He described the late Imam as a great scholar who would be remembered for his service in spreading the teachings of Islam. the schools he established and the many students he taught. In a media release on Friday, President Adama Barrow echoed public admiration for the fallen scholar for his knowledge and eloquence in the Arabic language, and a legacy he said will continue even after his life on earth. Imam Bandin Dramé, who died at the age of 90 on Thursday, was a leading reformer of the Gambia Super Islamic Council, to which he served as president until 2008. He served as Islamic Studies teacher at the Muslim High School for many years. He set up the Islamic Institute in Brikama. And from that statement from the presidency, next we head to South Africa, because South Africa's Black Lives Movement and the advertising industry are joining efforts to amplify their call to end racism and inequality against the black people. Well, since the killing of George Floyd by a white policeman in the U.S., there has been a wide range of condemnations against racism around the world. The advertising industry is committed to change the stand in lifting the face of equality. Let's have more details of that in this report.
The Black Lives Matter movement continues. It's now causing a shake-up in both the beauty and advertising industries, which work closely together. Nigerian model Adiola Adio, who made a career on the catwalk, says she often feels like an outsider.
I've been to certain castings where I've been told that I'm too dark for the casting, even though they did request black models. I've been on certain jobs where in a group of models, I would be the only black model and I would be the last person to have her hair and makeup done. It's really sad to know that in 2020, we are still having the same conversations that our grandfathers, great-grandfathers were having. And things have changed, but they have not changed enough.
Ario believes black people are still overlooked despite empowerment efforts in South Africa.
I have never gone on set and met a black makeup or hairstylist on set. Never. It is a huge problem because it's either one or two things. It's either they're not there at all, which is untrue, or the clients just choose not to use these people, which for me is just the biggest slap in the face.
Meanwhile, the advertising industry is making efforts to stay both politically and culturally relevant in South Africa's democracy, but that too needs to be stepped up.
So the people who make decisions, the people who work on campaigns, who influence campaigns, who influence content, are actually not necessarily diverse enough, and they don't necessarily understand the dynamics of the country, the dynamics of the population. The stereotypes that we create in communication by promoting a certain culture, suppressing certain cultures over the others, we are actually creating a space where even talented, brilliant designers from this continent will not thrive, because the cool brands to buy when you walk into that store are the ones that look European.
The message is clear. Empty promises from the beauty houses and advertising agencies will no longer be accepted. They've been failing black people for far too long, and they want them to go beyond shallow statements and commit to long-term change.
And from that report there in South Africa, we come back home because Asia being part of the global COVID-19 hot zones, the Gambia government dispenses financial tokens for Gambian students abroad, but that does not prevent them from logging to come back. The Gambian ambassador in Malaysia, who has been stranded in the Gambia due to the global shutdown of the aviation industry, hopes for the possibility of another goodwill gesture from the government in response to the situation. Here's more details of that.
Gambian students across Asia live with the heightened nostalgia for the Smiling Coast due to the restrictive measures brought about the outbreak of the coronavirus global pandemic. After the government's disbursement of $300 for each of them, life is much better, but not without their request for additional support to observe the COVID-19 lockdown back home. Ramzia Daib Ghanib, the Gambian High Commissioner to Malaysia, whose office is responsible for Asian countries, observed that agitation of the students was due to the startling news of the coronavirus in that part of the world.
And that's when the money was finally sent to the embassy in Malaysia so that we can start to disburse the funds. And which went very well, although the students were a bit agitated, and I can understand, because in Asia the COVID-19 was very, very high, and people were very scared, and they couldn't go out. They have no access to anywhere except maybe run to the supermarket and come back. So we were also very anxious for them to be able to get these funds.
Particularly those in Indonesia told iAfrica TV that details of all interested students, irrespective of their scholarship status, was taken for possible flight arrangement by the diplomatic office in Malaysia.
And I have a message for the students also, to be very patient. I'm a mother, and I can understand their plight. Right now in my house in Malaysia, I have about 10 students living there at the moment, at my expense, because some of them are friends to my two children. And when the lockdown found them there, I asked them to stay in the house until everything has eased. Before I leave here, I will have I'll go and meet the ministry in order to discuss about these students, to see how best after the COVID-19, how best we can try to get them out.
However, Ambassador Ramzia, who had been trapped in the Gambia by the closure of the international airbase, is paying the social cost of a few students at her residence in Malaysia. She pledged to engage the government on ways and means to provide additional response to the plight of the students.
Because Indonesia is one of the red zone when it comes to COVID-19. So government made that announcement that some people, if they want to go, within 24 hours they should contact the embassy, which some students did. And then the embassy make a list of students who want to go back to Gambia. The list has been prepared, but up to today, no communication is done in that aspect.
As part of the question and answer session during the second ordinary session of the National Assembly, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Gambians Abroad, Mamadou Tangara, told lawmakers on Wednesday that the government is currently focusing on students and not ordinary Gambians abroad.
Well, here we are dealing with the students. We know our capacity as a government, and we know that we cannot take care of all the Gambians who are stranded abroad. We would have wished to do that, but we don't have the means.
The impasse with educational institutions is still a fracture of the global impact of COVID-19 that has led to the deaths of more than 500,000 of this week. The number of cases, according to the World Health Organization, has exceeded 10 million worldwide. As to when shall the lockdown become a thing of the past, scientists are still on the research, but countries had begun the gradual easing of emergency restrictions to prevent economic and social impasse. For iAfrica News, I am Juldenjai Suare.
And that report there by Juldenjai Suare takes us to the break, but we'll come back shortly with the remaining of the story. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
TRRC gannaaw bi amee ndimbal ju bàyyeekoo ci mbootaayu àdduna ju faree wàllum transitional justice ak axu doomi aadama ñu xamee ko ci UNTJHR ñoo taxawal ndimbal ngir gën a yaatal ñun toroxal seen bokk ci wàllum sàkku dëgg ak liggéey TRRC bi ci wàllum gëstu ak joxe kàddu ci sutura wala ci mbooloo ji ndimbal nag dinañ ko joxe ngir yombal dem ak ñëw lekk ak naan wérdu yaram ak kaaraange ndimbal ji it dinañ ko jëfandikoo ngir jënd bagage yi wérdu yaram teg ci dimbale doomi Gambia yéen toroxal ngir ñu mën a fajoo bitim réew su dee seen soxla faju dafa jàmp ñu mën a jot ci biir ndimbal nag mooy ñun musa toroxal ci seen ak ñu leen dee gunge suñuy joxe kàddu seede yi ñun tuumaal ci toroxal doomi aadama ak ñu jàppale TRRC bi ci wàllum jot dëgg képp ku bëgg a sàkku ji ndimbal koolal TRRC Victim Support Unit ci 77 04 988 wala si 508 66 93 jërë ngeen jëf.
gaaw na te yomb na 2020 census bi nag du la jël ay waxtu yu bari pour nga jekkali ko kon nag na nga fexe ñu compter la yow ak say njaboot.
Welcome back, and you're watching the World Today News on Africa TV. And now to the rest of the stories. The African Development Bank has joined the World Trade Organization and other multilateral development banks to reduce the trade finance gaps that emerge as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In a joint press release, the institution said they would prioritize their support to areas in the world where such support is needed most, particularly the poorest countries. With the approval of $10 billion COVID-19 Rapid Response Facility in April, the African Development Bank is providing up to $1 billion in trade finance, liquidity and risk mitigation support to local banks in all 54 eligible African member countries. The African Development Bank is Africa's premier development finance institution on the grounds in 44 African countries with an external office in Japan. The bank contributes to the economic development and the social progress of its 54 regional member states. And from that, next we head to DR Congo, because of course DRC celebrated 60 years of nationhood, and the Belgian King Felipe has sent an apologetic letter to the leadership of the African state for brutalities committed by his ancestors in history lane. Some Congolese saw the apology as insufficient, noting that there should be a reparation for all the affected people. The country's foreign minister welcomed the move as the beginning of a new page of relationship. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Belgium's King Felipe expressed his deepest regrets to the DRC for the cruelty committed during the period that his ancestor, King Leopold II, ruled the country. He issued the apology in a letter to DRC President Felix Tshisekedi on the country's 60th independence anniversary. The DRC's foreign minister says King Felipe's apology has laid a foundation for a profound change. But some Congolese citizens say the apology isn't enough.
One who practices bad politics that results in the deaths of people must make amends by providing payment to the ancestors of those who were wronged.
Reparations must be paid for all the atrocities committed in the Congo. It's good the Belgian king has acknowledged the suffering they caused our people, but they should pay.
Millions of Congolese died during King Leopold II's rule between 1885 and 1908. The country and its people were exploited for natural resources. Belgium's colonial past in the DRC has come under scrutiny after the Black Lives Matter movement, which has grown in prominence after the killing of African-American George Floyd by a white police officer in the US. Belgian authorities removed a bust of King Leopold II from public display in the city of Ghent as the DRC marked its Independence Day on Tuesday. The DRC gained independence from Belgium in 1960.
And from the report there in DRC, finally we head to North Africa because Egypt's tourism and aviation industry has welcomed the government's decision to resume operations to help resuscitate the country's economy. This means that all airports will have to operate under stringent guidelines as advised by the Ministry of Health. Businesses were largely affected as government imposed emergency regulations to contain the spread of the COVID-19. Here is more details of that in this report.
It's been a long time coming. The resumption of flights is a welcome development for the tourism and aviation sectors. But the reopening comes with stringent safety measures in all airports due to the coronavirus. The Minister of Aviation has been present for a final review of the reopening process.
We have placed markers in the airports to ensure at least 2 meters of social distancing for the passengers. We have installed thermal cameras everywhere. It can spot people who are not wearing masks and can measure the temperature. If a passenger has high temperature, it gives an alarm so that officials can deal with the case. We sanitize all luggage before the passengers receive it, as well as the whole airport. And there are disinfectants everywhere for public use.
The first day has not seen much activity. However, state carrier Egypt Air's first flight after reopening has taken it to Tunis with 200 passengers on board. The highest traffic is expected at Cairo International Airport as well as 3 other cities.
The Egyptian government announcement resuming inbound tourism to 3 governorates: South Sinai, the Red Sea, and Matruh. The 3 governorates were selected because they witnessed the lowest number of coronavirus cases in Egypt and because they are all open-air cities on the beach with the warm and dry weather.
Meanwhile, over 300 hotels that have passed the coronavirus safety tests have been given licenses to reopen. Although they are only allowed to operate at 50% capacity, hotel executives are excited and say they're ready to receive guests.
Anything better than 0%, it's one step ahead from the bad days. When we started to hear about the COVID-19, we started immediately our proactive precautions, let's put it this way. The proactive precaution came from disinfection. We increased our teams of hygiene and the inspections. Number 2, we started to share all our info with our team in regard to distance, in regard to handshake.
Any hotel that breaches the health and safety measures will be shut down and lose its license. The tourism industry, a main source of hard currency for Egypt, has lost $6 billion from mid-February to May, and the aviation sector lost about $2.5 billion in the same period. Egypt has been officially declared as a safe-to-travel country by the World Travel and Tourism Council. Officials hope this would encourage travelers to choose Egypt as their next destination.
And that report there in Cairo, Egypt, finally brings this news bulletin to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, you can also log on our website on africa.tv. Well, once again, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye for now.